So let's move on to the next question, guys. In this question, we are given that x, y, and z are integers, right? So x, y, and z are integers, and we are also given that xy plus z is equals to odd integer, and xy plus xz is even integer, right? And we have to tell what is x, whether it's even, odd, prime, positive, or negative, right? Okay. So tell me one thing. If xy plus z is odd, right? So if you add two things and the result is odd, what does that mean? That means one number should be even and the other number should be odd. That is for sure, right? Because if you add two even numbers, even plus even will give you even, right? Odd plus odd will also give you even. I hope this should be very clear, right? But if you add even plus odd, that will give you odd, or if you add odd plus even that will give you odd, right? So what we mean over here is that if the addition of two things, if we add two things and if we get an odd number, that means one of them have to be even and the other has to be odd. I hope this should be very clear, right? Okay. So now let's come back to the question. So in the question, we are given that xy plus z is odd, right? We know that xy plus z is equals to odd, right? What does this mean? This means that one case is that xy is equals to even, right? And z is equals to odd. Or the other possibility is that xy is equals to odd and z is equals to even. I hope this should be fine, right? So there are two possibilities, that either this is even, this is odd, or this is odd and this is even. Only then only then the addition of these two things will become odd, right? Okay. So this is one thing. But we also know over here that xy plus xz is even, right? We also know that xy plus xz is even, right? So xy plus xz is equals to even, right? Now tell me one thing. If the addition of two things is even, it is only possible when both of them are even or both of them are odd, right? I told you this before. So there are two possibilities. One possibility is, so there are two possibilities in this. One possibility is that xy is equals to even, xz is equals to even, right? So both are even. Or xy is equals to odd and xz is equals to odd. I hope this should be very clear, right? So these are the two possibilities that can happen, right? Okay. Now tell me one thing. For example, let's suppose we take the first case over here. Let's suppose we take the first case over here. So if we take the first case, so we have two possible cases over here, right? So if we take the first case, obviously this case is not possible. Why? Because in the first case, xy is even, and in this case, xy is odd. So obviously these two cases are not possible together, right? Let's suppose if we take this case and if we take this case, right? So we know that xy is even, absolutely right. We know that z is odd. We know z is odd, right? And in this, we know that xz is even. So if this number is odd, and if this entire thing is even, so dash multiplied by odd is even. So this has to be even. If x into z is even, and if z is odd, that means x has to be even, right? So one thing which we can say, that x is equals to even. I hope this should be clear, right? So we have already taken this case. Now let's take this case, the second one. So if we take this case, then obviously we cannot take this case. Why? Because if we take this case, then xy will be odd, right? If we take this case, then xy is odd. But in this case, xy is even. So these two things are not possible together. So we cannot take these two. So now let's talk about these two things, right? Okay. In these two things, if you see very closely, this case is also not possible. Why? Because if z is even over here, if z is even over here, then xz has to be even. Because if you are multiplying two things and one of them is even, so the product will always be even, right? For example, uh, 2 into 3, it will give you 6 because one of them is even. 3 into 3 will be 9. This is odd because both of them are odd. But if you make this 4, for example, then obviously this will become 12, which is even because this is also even. So what I mean over here is that if there are two numbers which are being multiplied and if one of them is even, then for sure the product, the answer will always be even. But over here, we know that z is even and it is given xz is odd. So this is not possible. So we cannot take these two cases together because these are contradictory. So these two cases are not possible together. These two cases also are not possible together because in this case xy is odd and in this case xy is even. So these cannot exist together, right? So basically this case is bad. I mean, this case is not possible at all. So in this case, obviously we discussed it before. These two things are not possible because xy is even, xy is odd. So these two things are not possible together. But if you talk about this and this, so xy is even, absolutely fine. Z is odd, z is odd. So it means x has to be even for this entire thing to be even. So x becomes even, right? So what is your answer? The answer becomes A, that x is even. I hope this should be clear. So in such questions, you have to break down into different cases, into different possibilities, and then see what fits the best. I hope this should be pretty clear.